I'm in shock still. I believe the polls, the experts, mainly the betting. I was resigned to suffering through 4 more miserable years or 8 more years of this.
Raise the federal minimum wage.
Make sure women get equal pay.
The Democratic left is so smug, entitled, so wrong on the most important issues like debt and economic growth. But I assumed we were going to have to suffer under their rule for many more years. And yet, now, we don't. We have a fresh new voice. So now what? What'll Trump do? Sometimes he scares me. He said some horrible things, but he's also said good things. Who knows what he really believes or would do? So to get insight on that, let's talk to a Republican, a Democrat, and a Libertarian. Charlie Kirk's the Republican, part of a new wave of young people supporting Trump. Jessica Tarlov is the Democrat, a Hillary supporter. Are you miserable?
I mean, I like being with you all, but electorally, I am quite miserable.
Good. The Cato Institute's David Bose is the Libertarian, someone who warned me years ago, never fall in love with a politician.
Well, that's right. They'll always disappoint you. They promise to cut spending. They promise to stop the war. But this time, I can't be disappointed by Trump.
Because
I don't expect much.
You back him? Why do you back him?
Well, look, he wasn't my choice in the primary, but I think I'm glad I backed him, and I'm a believer in freedom and liberty. I'm more on the libertarian side than I am the conservative side. First and foremost, I thought the Supreme Court was a 40-year decision and not a 4-year decision. I believe firmly in private property rights. I believe in states' rights.
Trump says things about war that Hillary Clinton and most Republicans would never say.
We are losing billions and billions of dollars. We cannot be the policeman of the world.
This is new, David, and this sounds libertarian.
It is very new, and it is something that didn't get enough attention. The Republican Party nominated and then elected a candidate who rejects global intervention, the Reaganite, the neocon foreign policy. Now, he said some crazy things, too, like let's go in there, torture them, and take the oil. But he's talked about this theme of getting rid of global interventionism since 1987.
President-elect Trump also promises big spending.
We will build the roads, highways, bridges, tunnels, airports, and the railways of tomorrow.
Who wants to take that?
I will.
Well, go ahead.
Well, look, I mean, I think infrastructure has been a big thing, a big, obviously, point of his agenda.
We're going broke, you know?
We are, but one of the big issues since his announcement has been talking about the national debt and the need to balance the budget. Secondly,
he's talked about that?
Of course. He said we have a debt that's totally out of control. We need to balance the budget. Secondly, he has to work with Paul Ryan, who has been a budget hawk. And so he can't just play dictator for a day. He has to work with now Paul Ryan, who has been laser focused on getting that budget balanced.
He said he won't cut entitlements. That's where the big money is.
You're right.
He wants to spend more on the military.
However, he did say he's going to find waste, fraud, and abuse in every single agency. He's going to do a federal review. He's going to absolutely.
They always say that.
Listen,
no one's thought of that before.
He is different. Hey, everyone here has doubted Donald Trump, including myself, for a long time. And I think a dose of humility before he enters the presidency won't do anyone any harm. Because we all said he wouldn't win the primary. We all said he wouldn't win the general. Maybe he might surprise us and actually do what he says he's going to do.
He wants to cut taxes, which I'm for. He wants to increase spending on the military, increase spending on infrastructure, and not touch entitlements. I don't see how you balance the budget.
It's impossible.
Do you think he'd sign a budget if Paul Ryan put some, I would say, slight reforms to entitlements? I say absolutely yes.
He has told Paul Ryan, when I'm president, you're in big trouble, buddy. Now,
he also had a great meeting with him recently, right? So, hey, I think
I'm
Donald
having
Trump...
a great meeting with Jessica, but look, we agree on
I think if we want to advance the cause of freedom and liberty, we want to balance the budget, we want to cut taxes and go after bad regulations, we're more likely to do that with Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton.
We have to build a wall. We have to build a wall. We have to.
Charlie, the terrorists don't come in from the Mexican border, and a wall doesn't stop people. They go over, they get visas and fly in.
Sure. So, look, I think he has said he wants increased border security, and that's something a mass majority of Americans believe in. Secondly, he changed his position, I think, properly, where he said we're not going to ban Muslims. Instead, we're going to have a temporary restriction on individuals where ISIS is currently occupying the countries. Without getting too far into the details, I think we can agree, because I don't know exactly what he's going to propose in 70 days. I don't think anyone here does. But I think we can all agree that we do have problems on the southern border, and Hillary Clinton, even 8 years ago, said we need to have increased border security. So this is a bipartisan issue.
The Gang of Eight said that. I mean,
without a doubt. Look,
and they wanted more agents.
Yes. So the premise here is, what can we expect?
You pointed out to me that more blacks and more Hispanics voted for Trump than voted for Romney.
That's right.
I hate Trump's screed against trade. Trade is voluntary exchange between people. It doesn't happen unless both sides think they benefit. Globalization and free trade have been giant forces for good. Lots of desperately poor people like these are no longer so poor because of trade. 1 billion people have lifted themselves out of extreme poverty in the past 25 years, says the UN, and that's largely due to trade. So, Charlie, your candidate wants to restrict that with his tariffs.
He's not my candidate. He's now our president-elect, right? And so I want to say that. Look,
Sorry, good point.
I'm a big free trade guy. Let me say that. And this is something I have taken exception with. It'll be interesting to see. I believe that President Trump gets in office. I think he'll be presented with some clear and compelling data that overall, free trade has actually lifted more people out of poverty domestically and internationally. However,
this is something he could do, impose these tariffs without Congress.
Yes. However, there's 2 points I want to make very quickly. It is impossible to argue that certain trade policies have devastated certain parts of America, and not enough has been done to not necessarily build them with government money, but to at least lift those individuals, give them the attention they need, whether it be Scranton, Pennsylvania to Western Pennsylvania. And the Democrats ignored that for a very, very long time, both through politically and policy-wise. And the second thing I'll say is Donald Trump went after these individuals. And if you look at the votes that he got, the Republicans have not won these types of voters in a very, very long time, and trade was that big issue.
Well, that's why Bernie had any legs in the Democratic primary. I mean, besides the fact that there are people who don't like Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders went out there and he just hit economic issues solely, which is why he struggled so much with minority voters, throughout the primary. And he said these trade deals have hurt you. He even said today, I looked at what Donald Trump's proposing, and if he's going to talk about trade, then maybe this won't be so bad.
Popular doesn't mean it's right.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, Donald Trump is the president.
It's clearly wrong. These guys are both 70 years old, Trump and Bernie.
And
in
she's only 69.
Years, right, so she would have been better. 70 years old, and they haven't learned Econ 101.
Oh,
I don't think
presenting
this guy with data is going to solve the problem. Now, it may be that his aides will be able to tell him, look, every economist in the world
even on your own
agrees
team,
that trade makes the economy better. You're going to be held responsible for the state of the economy. Maybe he will shape up.
I hope so. Now, just on to stupid polls and media, how did we get the election results so wrong? On Election Day, the Huffington Post said there was a 98% chance Clinton would win. The Princeton Election Consortium had it even higher.
Your consortium has put out a projection of a 99% chance of winning. Hillary Clinton winning 332 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 206 electoral votes.
But I'm confident we really have a massive mobilization.
She lost. But I shouldn't laugh, because I embarrassed myself by assuming a Hillary victory many times. I have a syndicated column that runs on Wednesdays. This week, that meant I had to submit my column before the election returns were in. So I wrote about President-elect Hillary, how she would rule like a queen. In fact, we created this background for this show. We were so wrong. So what happened? How did polls and pundits get this so wrong?
Well, look, I have to take a little bit of credit and brag a little bit, because you only get to do this once every 4 years, right? I did predict that Michigan would turn. I thought Donald Trump would win, and I tweeted it out, and I had...
Based on what?
Well, look, because I traveled the country the last 60 days, and I was able to... I went to Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania. I talked to people. People were saying, I never voted for a Republican in my life. I feel ignored. I'm going to go for Donald Trump. I don't agree with him on everything. I believe that the media elites all across, they did not see this coming. It was the Brexit effect.